today's project, I was inspired by these hogweeds along my garden path. They're just so beautiful for their shapes. I also adore cow parsley. And then when I went home, I was thinking about what to make, and as I was washing up, a hare appeared in the back. They're just so beautiful. We have lots around our house. They're one of my most favourite animals. As you can see, I've got hares everywhere. So these beautiful plants and these gorgeous creatures I decided to put into my project. Hello and welcome to my studio. I'm a complete novice at filming, as you can probably tell by my standards, but I've been filmmaking for about 15 years and I thought it's about time I got behind the camera and started doing some online classes. So yeah, here I am filming today, and I'm making a surround, a felted like piece of artwork to go around this tea lampshade. And I've got these gorgeous hand-dyed yarns that I've done, merino wools. These are hand-dyed silks, Uzbekistan silk that I buy from Uzbekistan. Sari silks, and some more hand-dyed. This one I've actually bought in, and then just some standard merino wool. So I'll show you the results afterwards when I've finished. And here I am in my studio. And I'll show you more of my studio on another video. So anyway, on with this video. Enjoy. For this project you'll need some water, some soap, some bubble wrap, an old towel and some net. I've got an old lampshade or tea light that I'm going to cover with the felt project that we're going to make. Here you can see I've got a selection of lovely colours. They're all merino wool. This is the pipette I use to squirt the water. I've got lots of different kinds of wools, and this is some hand-dyed silk that I did myself with some Uzbekistan silk. Here I've blended together some silks and some merino wool, hand-carded them and blended, and you can see they're beautiful colours and very lustrous. They'll add great shine to the project afterwards. And these are the other colours I've got, plus yarn and some pre-felt to cut the shape. An old net, don't worry if it's got bobbles on from last projects, an old towel, my pipette for squirting the water, and I've put the olive oil in the water. The water's cold for now. I always use cold water rather than warm. To begin with, you lay out your towel with the bubble wrap on top, bubbles facing upwards. I've measured the diameter of the old lampshade that I had, which was about 15 inches, and I'm going to add an inch or two either side. It's a rough estimate because you can always cut any excess off the project. And this is the height of the lampshade. And as you can see, I've marked it onto the plastic so that I know the framework of where to lay out the wool fibres. And again, I've added an extra inch or two at either end of the height. Next thing, you take your wool, your merino fibre. In this case, this is the background colour. And you open it up, stretching it out from the top. And you have to be careful to only take the very, very ends of the fibre to pull away. And as you pull it away, you can see the bit in which I clasped in my hand. It's straighter, and I've laid this down at the bottom, so you get a straight edge. If it twists, just untwist it, and again, lightly pull the fibres, and you just clench the very ends of them in your hands, and then you get your straight line. And I'm laying all the fibres in the same direction. Then I'm going to slightly overlap and create the next row, laying the fibres down. You have to be careful when you grab the fibre ends not to grab them too high up, otherwise it doesn't come away. It should feel very, very soft and gentle. You shouldn't have any strain in your hand or on your shoulder. And if you have little bits like that just sticking out, you can pull those down too. open the fibres up along the length and again grasp the edges. Now I'm placing that straight edge, the grasped end, along the top to get my straight edge. This needs to be done very, very finely. I hope you can appreciate how fine these pulling out pieces are. And they're all being laid in the same direction, slightly overlapping. And this is just for the very, very top, a very fine bit, just to give that extra inch. Then I'm going to take my next colour, and this is the sky. So again, open it up. It's felted a little bit in on itself, this, because I've had it hanging around for a while. But you can still use it, you just open it up, which makes it easier to pull. Get your ends fluffed out, and then grabbing the very ends. As you can see, it doesn't pull as well as this, but the direction now is going across. You're kind of mark making, it's a bit like painting. You have to go in the direction that you're wanting to create, and the sky has a feeling of wispy clouds going across. So I want the mark of the wool, the marks of the lines to go across. If they were going down, it would look like rain, if you get my drift. There we go. So I'm just pulling it out. And because the wool has been lying around for a while, it's not as easy to pull out as the other, but it's still very usable. So there you are. I'm completely covering up the soft grey underneath. I used that grey lavender colour just to sort of show through a little bit to give a sensation of clouds, because if I'd used white it would have been too much of a contrast. So I'm just filling in any tiny little holes because I don't really want to see the lavender too much. Now I'm taking this sumptuous green hand carded merino wool with silk, and it's in a plait, and you just undo the plait at the end. That's just the way we do it for storage when we're making it, and as we make it for spinners as well, it's always easy to pull off if you were spinning or felting in this case. So again, we open it up wide. Actually, I changed my mind. I decided to just put a base layer down first of ordinary merino wool, purely because that other stuff is very expensive and I don't want to use too much of it because I also sell it online. So I'm just using a plain coloured roving here of merino green. I can send a list of suppliers. I'll put a list at the bottom of the video in the footnotes. And here I'm just laying out all the wool. Can you see the wisps at the end? The wool's all going upwards so that it looks like grass. And notice some are higher than others because you want to give that sensation of grass blowing in the wind. So in different directions but always going upwards. So it looks more like grass here. If I laid it acrosswards, it just wouldn't look like grass. Again, this is mark making coming into place, which is how the lines are when you're painting. So I've just flattened it down a little. Now I'm going to take this gorgeous sumptuous silks that's been carded into this other piece, and I open it up again. And I'm just going to pull off very wispy pieces. And again, lay them down as if they're grass. And they're slightly different colours. When it's dry, you'll see it's very different. And let some of it curl like that, as if it were just blades of grass blowing in the wind. And already there's a lot of movement in this piece. I always think it's so beautiful at this stage. It almost looks a bit like Van Gogh style. A lot of dynamism. Is that the right word? Dynamism? In the strokes. Almost like we're painting with wool. You can see the gorgeous bits of silk within this roving. Some of them I'd like to tweak the shapes a little bit, like this one. Almost like a big leaf almost. And just position them where you want them. You can put another one here at the end. There we go. And now I'm going to cut some bits of silk to add some more variation of the grasses. So I've got my yarn and silk bundle. Firstly, I'm going to create some kind of silk blades of grass. So I've got some gorgeous, it's almost like taffia silk. Is it called taffia? Doesn't feel like the right word. However, it's quite a stiff silk, and I'm just going to cut lengths of it, but it's just such a gorgeous colour. And it really shines when the light catches it. Doesn't tear very well though, so oh well, I'll just put that piece there, and then I'm going to have to use the scissors to cut my blades. Sometimes they're difficult to lay down if they're a bit too wrinkly, and here I've just put it in the water and it makes it easier to lie flat. Sometimes I like the twists and the folds that occur, such as there. I think that's really effective. Whereas other times I want to get a flat look, a straight line, in which case I would wet it. Yes, it's called taffeta silk, isn't it? It's what they would use for ball gowns and things. I just find random sellers on Etsy. This is this gorgeous hand-dyed Uzbekistan silk that I buy in and I hand-dye in my Etsy shop. You can find it there. I'm usually doing batches of lots of different colours, and then I'll put an announcement out that I've got lots for sale in my Etsy shop. I just love these colours, this green and this blue, goldy green. And again here I'm just looking for texture and subtle shades of contrast. Don't worry if any bits and pieces fall into the work. It looks quite sweet actually, you just get random little bits of specks of light. Now I'm going to start adding some yarns once I finish with the silk. Just adding a last bit here, just looking for balance. You don't want to make it too similar either side, so I'm just adding some final little wisps. I'm not sure about the sari silk. I think it might just be too busy, so I'll save that for another project. So here I've got my mohair, some yarn lengths that I've already cut up, and I'm going to use this to get a cow parsley effect. I'll wet felt some of it in, and then what I shall do afterwards is sew or needle felt some more definition. But it makes rather lovely cow parsley effects. It's a good contrast too. I'm always picking up yarn at charity shops or when I go to wool fairs. It's like an addiction. I'm sure most of us wool lovers have a big stash of supplies somewhere. So they might not look quite right in this wet, dry stage. That's an oxymoron. Well, how can you have wet and dry? What I mean is before I've added the water. So I'm just placing them sort of to give an effect of cow parsley, and then, as I said, I will add the detail once it's dry by needle felting. But I do like to put some pieces in whilst it's going in at this stage. But you don't have to worry too much about perfection at this point. Next I'm going to take some pre-felt, and I've got some white pre-felt, and I've drawn already my hare design on it, just with a soluble fabric pen, and then you just need to cut out the shape. I absolutely love hares. I've always got hares in my work somewhere. Once you've got your shape, you can lay down your hare. Just position its head right, looking exactly where you want it. It's got a bit of a pointy nose, my hare. In fact, I'm just going to trim it there. It's amazing what a tiny little cut the difference it makes, but yeah, that could really annoy me afterwards. And just stretch the ears and the legs into position where you want it. And then when you're happy with it, you can maybe even put some of the grasses going across to give the effect of the hare actually being in the grass rather than just directly on top. And then I'm going to put a moon there because hares and moons are synonymous. So just cut yourself a round moon shape. I just like to cut things freehand. Funny enough, drawing circles and cutting circles I find quite easy. Maybe it's because I'm doing it an awful lot. Looking back though, it's maybe not the best circle. There's one or two pointy bits on there, but I think it's going to be okay. Just trim that bit. And then you need to place your moon behind your grasses. Just remember, don't put it on top. It has to have the effect of being up in the sky, and to give that depth of field you need things in front of it. I'm thinking about putting some Wensleydale on it as well, but I don't know. I'm not sure. Looking at this now, actually I quite like that. But no, I think there was too much white. But you can play around and you can see. The good thing about this, you can put things down, take them off. In the end, I've just decided to go with that simple design. And there we go. I'm quite pleased with that, and remember at the end I'm going to do some sewing onto it and some needle felting so we can get some more definition once it's dry. Now we're at the stage of wetting. So you need to take your old piece of net, and in this case, I've got a really old piece and it's got lots of old bits of felted project on top of it. But don't worry too much. These bubbles are well felted into the net, they won't come off. Just pull your net to cover your work, I should say. And then you're going to take your water. I've got some olive oil soap in the water. And then I've got my pipette, which is great for squirting. Mine's a bit dirty because I use also this pipette once where I've been painting. I had blue hands for some reason and it doesn't come off, the acrylic paint. Anyway, just completely cover your work with water. And the soap in the water, as I said before. Make sure that every bit of your work's covered, not like I've done there. That's better. And then very carefully, once you realise everywhere is completely wet, especially around the edges of your design, then you're going to pat it down with soapy hands. In fact, you can take the soap and glide it across your work, but at this stage, no rubbing, simply pressing. When I'm gliding my hand like that, it's very, very lightly, so at this stage it's better just to press. And then very gently, when you feel that everything's flat, you can begin to rub. Smooth everything, and you see where you've got the silks underneath and the edges of your work. Make sure that you pay attention to there. You can put the soap directly onto it. And very gently. It looks like I'm not being very gentle here, but I am. Just years of practice, I know how much pressure at this point to put on, and it is very gentle. Paying particular attention to your details. Again, the edges and where the silk is. And you want to do this now for a good 20 minutes, gently rubbing. Just put on some of your favourite music and away you go. Every now and again, you have to check that your net isn't sticking to the wool. So very carefully, just peel back, flicking it with your fingers and peeling the net off very gently. Careful not to lift any of your detail, and any bubbles can pull off, but be really careful. You have to do this to make sure that the work isn't becoming embedded in the net. So just remember to do that every now and again. Now we're ready to pull back the net for the big reveal, checking that everything's well and truly stuck down. You can see the net's actually sticking to your work now, so you have to kind of drag it off, but always hold on to your work as you drag away. Can you see there a little bit came up, so be very careful of that. If I were to keep on rubbing without taking the net off, it would all become enmeshed together. So make sure that you do remove your net. And then just simply place the net back down again and re-wet and re-soap and keep rubbing for another 5 minutes. Now it's time to add the bamboo mat. So really you should have your bamboo mat underneath your plastic. So I'll put my bamboo mat down, and then put the bubble wrap on top, open it back up, and then with the net still on top, making sure that nothing's folded over the way it just did then. So make sure that everything's nice and straight and not folded over. Then I'm going to make like a jelly roll. So I'm basically going to roll up the mat with the bubble wrap, the work and the net all still together. And you roll it one direction. It will crease a little bit. Don't worry about that, that's going to happen anyway. And then I wrap my towel around it. Not all the way, just halfway. And then I roll backwards and forwards for about 5 minutes each direction. Open it up, turn your work around, and do the same thing in each direction. It'll start to look creased, but don't worry. Just keep checking that nothing's moved, which it hasn't done, and making sure that you turn your work around 90 degrees and make another parcel. I've just flipped the work over and I'm just rubbing the back to make sure that there's no loose fibres. It's always a good idea to give it a little bit of a rub and a felt on the back of your work, because sometimes we neglect that part and it can be a bit fuzzy. Once again, put your net down and then you're going to just create a parcel again and give it a few final rolls. And then when you feel secure that everything is ready to be shrunk, fold it all up and we can take it, squeeze it out, and we can take it to the sink to give it a final rinse and a massage. There you go, you can see that the shapes are completely embedded into the fibres. So now I'm just going to take it to the sink and I'm going to rinse. Excuse my dirty sink. There we go. And I'm just going to do it very rigorously with hot and cold water. And I also throw it, because throwing helps to shrink the fibres by shocking them. Next I take it outside, and in the sunshine I have a nice big slab outside which I work on sometimes. I've opened it up to dry in the sunshine. I'm just checking that all the fibres are well and truly embedded into the wool and that everything is enmeshed together. Excuse the aeroplane in the background. Sometimes what I do is I like to just throw it down a few more times just to shock the fibres and to make sure that they're truly felted. You can actually see when it felts properly, everything starts to wrinkle. And then you can tell that it's shrunken. Look how the sunshine catches the light as well. Everything looks so lustrous. And basically, that feels nice and tight now. Maybe one last throw down. This is called fulling, making sure that all the fibres are well and truly connected so they don't come apart. And then when you're ready, just open your work up, and I'm laying it down in the sunshine to dry, and we'll come back to it later to add some embellishment. Thanks for watching. Come back to see part 2.